If you continue to use every single fiat financial instrument under the sun, it's like, all right, well then you can't really complain when fiat continues to exist, right? Like you're helping all this
Right.
happen. But so I get that, but then at the same time, I'm also not really of the belief that it's feasible for Bitcoin at this point in time, keywords at this point in time, to really like fully take the reins from fiat.
Hmm.
Uh, that just one example would be if you had an opportunity to get a 2.275 mortgage for 30 years to buy a home in 2021, like you're probably supposed to take that. Like it's
Yeah.
actually good for you and your family to take it. I guess you could kind of take the moral high ground and be like, I'm not going to do that. But now you're in a situation where like you're kind of disadvantaging
Hmm.
yourself and your family just because you want to say, I don't want to use fiat at all.
Yeah.
Like I would respect it in a certain way, but I don't know if that's really the right answer. So, I mean, maybe the answer is just aligning reality with your expectations a little more for like, look, I want the whole world to be using Bitcoin and Lightning and eCash. I really do.
Yep. Yeah.
But do I think we're anywhere close to the point where that could feasibly happen from a tech perspective, from a user experience perspective, also from like a personal responsibility perspective? We talked about
Yeah.
the John Adams quote about citizens needing to be of a certain moral and religious standard for the Constitution to work. It's like we all kind of agree that that's not what the populace is of the United States
Right.
at this point in time. And I think that has implications for money too. It's like most people don't want to use a self-sovereign money. Like I think we just have to come to terms with that reality. Now, last thing I'll say is there's still this question of like, what are you going to do to try to advance Bitcoin adoption? And I don't think that, even though I just said everything I said, I don't think that means you have to like sit on your hands and do nothing. I still love having conversations with people that are just like, hey, you know how inflation happens every single year? Like it wasn't always this way. Like look at what inflation was before 1971, before 1913.
Hmm.
We literally don't have to live in a world where the dollar gets devalued every year. It's a relatively recent phenomenon. Um, what was the guy's, was it Patrick Henry who said death and taxes?
Mm.
I think this one should get talked about more often. He said death and taxes. He didn't say inflation. You know
Right.
why? Because inflation was not a given at that point in time. They
Yeah.
didn't live in a world back then where they said everything has to get more expensive every year. Inflation is a phenomenon of the last
uh,
100 years. So I still love talking to people about this stuff, and I'm going to keep doing it, but I also don't want to be under an illusion that it's like, all right, if John just talks to a few more people about Bitcoin and they adopt Bitcoin, that like fiat's going to go away soon. I think we just need to ground our expectations in reality on that.
all right. So, this rotation of what was happening and just this 80,000 coins and just the rotation in general, it feels like this, around 100,000 here. It's been, basically between 100, 120 for really the last year, I guess, right? I mean, all 2025, it's just been ping ponging back and forth. It feels very healthy. I mean, it feels like a very strong base, does it not? Like it feels like, hey, with all this happening, that base, it has to build those bases and the for price to springboard off of that. So it seems very healthy, is it not?
I think it is. And as you're saying that, I was just pulling up my one minor stat that I like to check, but and I haven't updated it in a bit. But if you look at the number of days that the price was above 60K in 2021, I know I don't have the stats in front of me, but it was not a lot. Like we Bitcoin hit 60K and crossed 60K in 2021, but it was really like weeks worth of time that Bitcoin spent above 60K. And then otherwise it was coming back down. And then you look at the number of days that Bitcoin has been above 100K since it last crossed. It was like the first week of December last year when it first crossed 100K. And really, like most of this year, it has spent above 100K. And to me, that is very healthy. Does it mean that maybe it's going to be harder to see Bitcoin like double and triple in like 6 months' time? Because remember, Bitcoin was like 12K in late 2020 at some point. Like
Yeah.
I think in December 2020 it was like 12K, And then in the springtime, so just like 4 or 5 months later, it hit 60K.
Yeah.
So those like 5Xs in 5 months, probably not going to see that again for Bitcoin. You could if there's some like crazy adoption headline.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a much more mature asset. We're above 2 trillion in market cap. And I do think it's healthy. The fact that you can see people sell tens of thousands of Bitcoin and the price is still above 100K, to me is another reason to be bullish.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What are your thoughts on just Saylor in general, like kind of a broad brush? The treasury companies, obviously they've been getting hammered, kind of this whole malaise, just everything that's been going on the last really handful of months, just socially, economically, a lot of just a lot of weird stuff going on. So what do you see? I mean, is it just across the treasury space, whether it's people coming in, the existing players, strategy, Saylor, that I know they have some new offerings again. He's behind the curtain, and they're drumming up new things seemingly every week, it seems like. So give me your rundown on what's going on in the treasury world.
Yeah, I think if you look back, rewind the clock to Q4 of last year or Q1 of this year, basically it was like a strategy, and the Bitcoin treasury company strategy in general was like could do no wrong, right? Totally hot. Anyone is going to do this. There's going to be hundreds of them. Like that was the narrative at the time. And since then, it's gone ice cold, and people are like, "Oh, it's only strategy, and even strategy is going to have a 1.1 mNAV, and everyone else is going to fail." Like that's the narrative now. And I do believe the truth is somewhere in the middle. I don't think we get back to these. And I only follow the space like loosely. So I couldn't even tell you the number, but I know a company like Metaplanet traded to some nutty MNAV, right? Like I think it was like 10 or 15x MNAV. I really don't think we're getting back to that. But I think the people who are saying, oh, MNAVs are never going to be above 1.5 ever again, like they're probably wrong too. Just wait until Bitcoin is ripping. And then also just like look at what the numbers on some of these strategies are. If you can borrow at a rate of 8, 10, 12% and acquire a whole bunch of Bitcoin and increase your Bitcoin per share, and Bitcoin goes up at 20, 30, 40, 50% per year, like the numbers just literally are that you deserve some sort of MNAV, and you're going to increase Bitcoin per share over time, and you're going to be a company that ends up with a whole bunch of Bitcoin. So I'm of the belief that this is a long game. I don't think any company that was just trying to like get a short-term pump in their stock by doing this, they failed at it, and they were never in it for the right reasons. So I think the companies that stick around. Also remember, the Wall Street Journal literally wrote an article in 2022 declaring the death of Michael Saylor and his strategy. So like people need to remember how sentiment can shift. The one company that now everyone has accepted is a success, MicroStrategy. Mm-hmm. Even in 2022, people were like, they're dead. So I think everyone needs to zoom out on not just Bitcoin, but Bitcoin treasury companies. And just remember that this is a long game. It doesn't mean they're all going to be successful, but the companies that do this, if Bitcoin is the asset you and I think it is, and companies stick with this strategy for years on end, there's going to be a bunch that are successful, their stocks do well, and they end up with a whole bunch of Bitcoin.
If you like that clip, then you definitely got to check out this next spicy clip. I think you're really going to like it. Come on, check it out. But if you want the full version, the full interview, then check that out over here. Come on, do it. See you in there.